Hey everyone, welcome back to Jason00. Today we're doing something a little different and carrying through with the results of our giveaway. To remind you, we ran a little giveaway where all you had to do is jump into the Discord server, pop over to the channel Halo Lore Discussion, and ask a question about anything from Halo Lore that you want. I was then to select the 3 best questions, and of those there will be a first, second and third prize winner. The first place gets a free copy of Spartan Assault and Deus Ex, the second place gets Spartan Assault, and the third place gets Deus Ex. And to top it all off, your question will be answered in video format, which is what we're here to do today. Well, after much deliberation, I have chosen our 3 winners of our giveaway, but of the massive amounts of awesome questions that I received, I boiled them down to a short list of 37 questions. I chose the 3 winners, but the other questions were so good I can't just leave them. So they are gonna get their own video where I do a kind of quick-fire Q&A video. But this video is about the 3 winners, so time to get to it. So straight off the bat, third position and a copy of Deus Ex goes to Stefanzo, who asked, before the Spartans, the ODSTs were the badasses of the UNSC and were still well regarded in the Human Covenant War by other fellow soldiers as the best one can become from standard conscription. But now with Spartan 4s becoming available as the best a soldier can train to become, are ODSTs considered to be outdated and destined to be phased out? As larger numbers of Spartan 4s become available to be deployed in the field and are better suited to perform the roles of the shock troopers with higher efficiency with lower percentage of failure due to the aid of the armour, what's going to happen to the ODSTs? Well, ODSTs were the original badasses. Upon the arrival of the Spartans on the scene, the dynamic shifted slightly. The Spartans' operational effectiveness and proven track record of pulling off the impossible meant that the top brass assigned more and more responsibility and top-tier missions to the Spartans as opposed to the ODSTs. I think everyone knows the particularly unpleasant training incident in where John was put up against a group of ODSTs to test his augmentations out. Initially just a simple run-in between John and the ODSTs, a sergeant soon interrupted and ordered them into the ring to fight it out in true ODST style. In the following seconds, John killed 2 of the ODSTs and permanently paralysed a third. Well, the reputation of the Spartans then soon circulated across the ODSTs of the 105th Division, and numerous attempts were made to even the score over the coming years. Now that the Spartan 4s are around and the augmentations can be given to practically anyone, yes, there is a distinct possibility that the ODSTs will have an ever-diminishing role within the UNSC. That being said, having the augmentations are a choice, and I'd be tempted to say that the ODSTs of the 105th at least are likely to opt out of augmentations as a point of principle. The derogatory nickname of freaks in relation to the Spartans is particularly prevalent within the 105th, and the grudge between them and the Spartans does not appear to be going away anytime soon. Now yes, ODSTs have and will continue to opt for the S4 augmentations to become more combat effective, but the reality is that there are still roles that the ODSTs perform that would be difficult for a Spartan to perform. One that jumps to mind is undercover operations. To be effective undercover, you have to be the grey man. You have to blend into the crowd, be unassuming and easily missed. That way you can integrate yourselves into your cover more completely and gain that invaluable intelligence or unattainable proximity to your target. If you're a 7-foot-tall muscular Spartan, that is much more difficult than if you're a 5'10" ODST in civilian clothing. Going back to the augmentations, because they are now so openly available to practically every soldier as long as they're worth their metal, that puts the act of getting the orcs down to choice and choice only, as the choice is now practically the only variable if you're already a seasoned soldier of the ODSTs. Augmentations are fundamentally a choice, and a choice that some people will not be willing or comfortable to make. Not everyone would want to be augmented. So while the ODSTs have probably lost some of their forces to the Spartan program, you've got to bear in mind that the quantity of known Spartan 4s only numbers between 300 to 500 plus Spartans, where the ODSTs in the 105th Division alone number between 15 and 20,000 ODSTs. So they're not going to disappear overnight, and they are most definitely still relevant and useful to the UNSC, so don't expect our black hell-jumping brother and sisters to wander off into the darkness. Thanks for your awesome questions, Stefanzo. I'll be in touch soon with your prize. Second place and a copy of Spartan Assault goes to Marius, who asked, how does the cryogenic and flash cloning work in Halo lore? Well, let's start with cryogenics. Individuals enter cryonic suspension without any clothing, mainly because clothing tends to bond to the skin at extremely low temperatures. Individuals who disregard this and enter cryosleep with clothing or bandages will often wake up and find their skin is blistered and raw. However, dedicated form-fitting full body suits specifically designed for use in cryo can be worn without the ill effects of normal clothing, though the use of such suits is not very widespread within the UNSC military. Spartans are also able to enter cryo with their Mjolnir armour on. The put-down cycle takes approximately 7 minutes. During the first 4 minutes, anesthetic gas causes the subject to become drowsy. Then another gas reacts to form a bronchial suffocant when inhaled, coating the passages of the lungs to help ensure a smooth wake cycle. Cytoprethyline, a drug used by the UNSC during cryosleep, prevents the damage to the occupant's cell membranes caused by ice crystal formation. It is recommended that a doctor administer the drug, but most of the time the shot is administered by a medic or by pre-measured self-injectors. Some humans, such as Thomas Lasky, exhibit a rare allergic reaction to cytoprethyline. Due to the frequent use of cryosleep in the UNSC during interstellar voyages, severe instances of such conditions are grounds for medical discharge from the UNSC service. Spartan 2s, generally speaking, entered cryosleep without receiving cytoprethyline, but due to their augmentations, the Spartans likely didn't need to receive such medication. Once the subject is prepped, the chamber automatically proceeds to the freezing stage. The unit begins to rapidly cool the body and administers an electric current that precisely counters the normal wave across the heart muscle, stopping its rhythm. The unit reaches the optimal storage temperature in 3 minutes. Some subjects report dreaming in cryosleep, but scientists maintain that dreaming in this state is physically impossible due to the ceasing of neurochemical processes in the brain. The likely explanation is that most subjects experience a burst of REM sleep during the wake cycle. Subjects erroneously attribute these dreams to their cryosleep time. Once started, the wake cycle takes approximately 15 minutes to complete. The subject is warmed in a controlled manner and electric current applied to stimulate the heart to start beating again. The lid of the chamber will automatically open when the cycle is completed, and the interior lighting increases to full brightness. Most sleepers do not awaken until this time. When awakening, sleepers are required to sit erect in the chamber, take one breath, and cough. This first breath may be laborious to draw, but it is absolutely imperative in order to clear the lungs of the suffocant immediately. The suffocant is designed to be immediately swallowed in order to replace nutrients lost during the journey. Some UNSC personnel find the taste of the suffocant to be unpleasant. Overall, cryonics is a necessary factor for long-distance space travel for the UNSC, and the interesting thing is that a good amount of research and even experiments have been made in regards to cryonics in the real world, and I also plan on covering this in depth in the very near future. Now for flash cloning. Now, if we're talking about the flash cloning of organs for replacement, that's pretty straightforward. A sample of the patient's DNA is taken and used as the basis for a similar process to stem cell 3D printing, which is actually something we've got available to us now. Usually the organ is programmed to grow at an accelerated rate and cease rapid development when transplanted into the subject. This makes the method viable in urgent situations when patients can't afford to spend years waiting for a normal organ to develop. Since the transplanted organ's DNA matches that of the recipient, the risk of transplant rejection is completely eliminated. Flash cloning has replaced donated organs as the standard means of organ replacement for both civilian and military purposes. Organs such as the heart, the liver, the endocrine system can be replaced with cloned parts, which can be used to negate the effects of an unhealthy lifestyle and to extend the lifespan of a human being by decades, as demonstrated by Admiral Preston Cole. Certain lost or damaged body parts, such as eardrums, can actually be grown in situ on the patient's body. This process is noted as being particularly tedious and requires 2 weeks of mandatory downtime for military personnel. Dedicated cloning facilities allow the growth of the replacement organ within hours after retrieving the patient's DNA. During the fall of Reach, Dr. Halsey actually used a flash clone facility at Castle Base to replace Kelly 087's liver and right lung. A portable flash cloning tank can be as small as a shoebox, and when used by a medical professional in conjunction with a sterile field generator, can be used to perform organ transplant surgery in the field. Cloning an entire human, however, is a different situation altogether. While flash cloning entire humans is possible, the procedure is by no means perfect, and it is actually illegal in accordance with the UN colonial mortal dictata. The process involves the modification of a cloned human embryo, which causes it to develop 100 times faster than it would have naturally, but many anomalies appear as a result of this abnormal developmental rate. They lack muscle memory and socialization of their hosts. Though these problems can be remedied with intensive therapy, compounding biological defects can't be corrected. Rapid flash cloning of immense volumes of tissue induces gross DNA base pair errors, congenital defects increase 42%, and incidence of Parkinson plus syndromes increase by 67%. Although a small percentage of flash clones can have a normal life expectancy, most flash clones will start to degenerate from metabolic instabilities as a part of the process called metabolic cascade failure. Death from various neurological and physiological disorders, basically. The average half-life of a flash clone is actually 14.7 weeks in laboratory conditions, and as previously mentioned, it is illegal, so in only very few instances has it actually been used. And those particular instances include the creation of the artificial intelligence by the cloning of Catherine Halsey's brain, and the kidnap of all of the candidates of the Spartan 2 program. Again, awesome question, Marius, and again, I'll be in touch with your prize. And finally, the penultimate, first place, and a copy of both Deus Ex and Spartan Assault goes to LM the Tucker. I tried to think of a different way that could be possibly pronounced, but I'm just guessing it's LM the Tucker. I'm just going to call you Tucker. So he asked, the year is currently modern day 2020, and 3 CCS-class battlecruisers, Halo Reach era, stumble upon modern-day humanity. Seeing how inferior we are compared to the Covenant, they decide to attack and test the strength of humanity to see if they would be fit for the Covenant, assuming the prophets aren't aware of humanity at this point, and they aren't aware of humans being reclaimers. The 3 ships wouldn't call for backup, and they think humanity would quickly fall and submit under the firepower of the 3 ships. The 3 ships immediately descend upon humanity, one heading to Philadelphia, the other for Berlin, and the last ship heading towards Paris. Could humanity survive the Covenant invasion, assuming nuclear weapons aren't in play? Now, right off the bat, just 3 CCS-class battlecruisers against all of humanity's militaries, it was going to be a definite win for humanity, but that last caveat of removing nukes from the equation does muddy the water substantially. So we're going to have to break this down a little bit. So a single CCS-class battlecruiser has 8 superior officers who are generally highly skilled and ranked Sangheili, meaning they are also trained warriors. It has 2 engineers and 500 menials, which can pretty much be disregarded as engineers are non-combative, and the 500 menials are basically domestic servants, so would also likely be non-combative. As far as actual infantry, however, a single cruiser carries 180 officers, 2,500 warriors, and 4,100 thralls, which are basically defined as being individuals who are in a state of being under someone's power. This likely means the lesser ranked individuals of the Covenant. That means a single cruiser has 6,788 combative units. Were the cruisers grouped together and landed on a single area, that would be 20,364 Covenant troops to deal with. However, since they are spread out over 3 different landing zones, really we should only consider fighting against one single cruiser and its crew armament and complement, since the tactics would likely simply be repeated on the other 2. Cruisers are a small craft, but would likely be detected by our near-Earth asteroid tracking system and satellites, giving us a small window of preparation. But since we have next to no orbital defences or any substantial military presence in space, the ships would basically just enter our atmosphere and head to their respective LZs, pretty much unencumbered. Upon landing groundside, the cruisers would likely dispatch all of its strike craft and vehicles to set up and clear a landing zone and clear the skies around the cruisers. The warriors would then be dispatched and move outward and away from the ship, clearing the area as they went. The cruisers' point defense weapons would make short work of people evacuating the area and trying to get clear of this new alien threat, and this would likely be where the largest loss of life would be experienced. Our counterattack would probably already be in effect by this point. All militaries across Earth would be communicating and coordinating our forces to meet a common enemy. Going against an unknown foe, the likelihood is that a small recon task force of fighters and drones would be sent in to the cruiser's LZ area to gain as much intel on the situation as possible. They would inevitably be fired upon and burned from the sky. It would be now that the militaries would attempt a strike on the ship itself, as it is the biggest threat. Massive strikes would be issued to the cruisers, although bear in mind that nukes are off the table, they're not in play, so the use of non-nuclear missiles would be the go-to weapon, likely with the largest destructive capability possible, so things like the mother of all bombs. It would be now that the ship's shielding would become apparent. Long-distance strikes would be attempted on the ship's accompanying fighters, and good headway would probably be made if our best supersonic fighters were dispatched to take them out, as long as they maintained a comfortable distance from the cruiser itself. Here it becomes a numbers game. A single cruiser has 32 Seraph strike craft, 10 Spirit or Phantom dropships, and 50 Banshees, totaling 92 usable aerial combat vehicles. Now the US has more bombers than that at 162, with 1,840 fighters or multi-role aircraft, outnumbering, say, the Philadelphia cruiser fighters 20-1. This massive numbers advantage would make short work of the cruiser's accompanying aerial force, but the big issue is still the cruiser and its energy shields in trying to get past it. Its 55 insertion pods and 20 tick boarding craft would be basically useless in this circumstance, so we'll disregard those as well. The use of the ship's plasma turrets would likely reveal one of its weaknesses to humanity, that they have to drop their shields near the turrets in order to fire. With enough infantry with surface-to-air missile launchers, it is likely that well-timed shots at the turrets as they fire would damage or destroy the cruiser's primary point defense systems, clearing the skies completely for our bombers and fighters to get more up-close and personal with the cruisers. The collective amassed infantry of humanity would then have to engage the Covenant vehicles and infantry on the streets of the respective cities the cruisers settled in. Again, with all of humanity fighting, that's another massive numbers advantage for humanity, as well as a home field advantage, as the Coveys would likely be unfamiliar with the layout of our cities and its buildings, the infrastructure, drainage systems, subways, etc., allowing our troops to navigate across the city with good coordinating formations and maneuvers to flank and counter Covenant emplacements. Once the air was clear, all surviving human fighters would likely barrage the cruiser with as much firepower as humanly possible to try to take down the cruiser's shields. This tactical advantage of the Covenant would make taking out the ship particularly difficult, so bombers would likely be used outfitted with something like a bunker buster bomb, which have hardened tungsten tips which are normally designed to penetrate through meters upon meters of solid rock. They would likely be used as the next best bet to taking out the cruiser, basically. If humanity coordinated this strike with the barrage from the surviving fighters, the amount of ordnance striking the cruiser should weaken the shields enough to allow a good portion of the bunker buster bombs through, puncturing the hull and detonating within the ship, gutting large sections of the ship, and with a tactic of aiming for centre of mass, which would be a logical thing to do, to be fair, these bombs should strike, oddly enough, the command deck within the ship and even some of the energy shield systems, some of the energy sources, and in theory that should either cripple the ship or actually bring the ship down, leaving us to simply mop up the stragglers. I mean, there is so much more detail I could go into on this question, and I likely will in the future, but to shorten the answer a bit, because we're already getting on for 20 minutes, it would take all of humanity uniting against a common foe and marching every available military asset, soldier, tank, fighter, ship, and everything available to us ignoring all of our nuclear weapons, because that would give us quite a strong tactical advantage, but it would take all of that for us to effectively take on the cruisers and their complements. But I think, given that really humanity would likely be successful in defeating them due to the numbers, and because most modern human weapons and the UNSC's weapons don't actually differ that much. The UNSC still use ballistic weapons. The biggest difference between modern humans and the UNSC is the spaceships and the inherent technology needed to make them, nukes, and the wide-scale application of railguns and Mac cannon technology. But aside from that, there aren't really many differences between modern humans and humans from the UNSC. But it's also worth noting that we wouldn't get out of it just, scot-free. There would be massive losses of life directly around the area where the cruisers touch down, and probably significantly further afield. And it would probably take a quite a significant amount of time after, just for clear up, to be able to make sure that we've killed all of the aliens, to clear the wreckage. The technological innovations we would find as a consequence. It's just right. I'm getting carried away with this subject now. See, this is the reason why that was a winning question right there. I could theorize. I'm going to theorize on this particular subject for an entire video. It's going to have to happen because I've got started now. Anyway, great question, Tucker. I'll be in touch with your prize, and I will cover this more extensively in the near future. Congratulations to everyone who won. Expect a quick fire Q&A video where I answer the remaining 34 questions to the best of my ability, because they were still awesome questions, and I think they deserve to be heard. You guys are awesome, and thank you so much for participating. This is actually the first giveaway of many, many more to come, so stay tuned, and that leaves me to say thanks for watching. Stick your comments down below. I look forward to what you have to say. I want to give a quick shout out to my patrons: Sir Tenchi, the silent cartographer, Brian, Sebastian, Holden, Nathan, Red Sea, Darian, and Neek, the holders of the mantle, Ty, Black Biscuit, J Rabbit, Austin, Kaiser, Silux, Reclaimer216, and the Revanche, my reclaimers, Zach, Deep Cover, Verbal Statue, Spesigo, Spartan A498, Guppy, Josh, Mickey, Bastion, Molshar, and Slithery Tube Dude, my Metarchs, and all the other patrons that have jumped aboard to support the channel. You guys are awesome, and all of this wouldn't be possible without you. If you like Halo Lore discussed to insane levels of detail, hit that subscribe button and the little bell icon so you're told the second a new video hits the shelves. Be sure to support us on all major social media channels, including Discord, and if you really love the channel, consider heading over to Patreon and supporting the channel over there. It would mean the world to me and would free up more of my time for me to put into this content and other Halo-related goodness. Take it easy, everyone, and find peace in the domain.